Well, good afternoon. This is Alan Sykes with Sykes and Company, and with me I have today Samantha Timmerman, who's in charge of marketing in Ananda Professional, T.W. Taylor, who is with Williamsburg Drug in Williamsburg, Virginia, and also Bonnie Bond, who is a shareholder with Sykes and Company. So we're glad to have you with us today. And for those of you that are listening on the recorded version, we are going to attempt to cover a lot of issues today with respect to what is taking place in the industry very rapidly here with respect to CBD. We've got two rock stars here with Samantha, and also TW. Samantha representing obviously Ananda, and TW representing Williamsburg Drug. Williamsburg Drug is one of the nation's leading nutraceutical and CBD suppliers, and I'll let TW tell you all about that. So, again, it's great to have everybody on the call, and Bonnie, you can kind of roll forward. We'll let see what's next, and obviously we're going to talk about CBD and profitability in your pharmacy. We personally think here at Sykes and Company, and all we do is work with hundreds of pharmacies all over the country, that this is an opportunity that um, is very close to the hearts of many independent pharmacists, and we think that you've got a real opportunity to capitalize on that. So, TW, you want to kind of take it and take it from that point?
Sure. Yeah, we are pretty excited about it. It's been the most dramatic thing that I've ever done in pharmacy, and we do a ton. So one of the things I always start this with is I ask my fellow pharmacists, "What's your job?" And most of them will say something along the lines, they fill prescriptions and help patients. And I've decided that my job is to optimize my patient's health at every age and every disease state, which has nothing to do necessarily with filling prescriptions. A lot of the prescriptions I dispense actually causes depletions and other issues that makes my patient's health worse. And the pharmacists are in the best position to help that because they see their patients 30 to 34 times a year, where the doctor sees them once or twice at best. And since we know the metabolic pathways, we should take advantage of that. The docs don't have time. They got to fill out the ICD-10 codes and the ICD-10 modifiers. And so the office manager is yelling at the prescriber because they took over 7 minutes to see the patient. So this puts us in a position to really help our patients. And instead of thinking yourself as a provider, we're actually partners with our patients in improving their health. And you have to have a different mindset. And if you do that and not focus on the prescription side, it'll be life-changing for your pharmacy. So you're a partner with the prescriber, helping educate them, and you're a partner with the patient, helping them get the best outcomes from themselves. And the reason that is that all the stuff that prescribers are doing now is standards of care. They look at the screen, they don't look at the patient, they check off the boxes, and that's the answer to the patient, and then it's next. And so the patients aren't standard, and you have to do things that's different. For instance, you might have somebody coming in, they're having trouble getting a testosterone level up, and it's because they're zinc deficient. And you're able to make a huge difference with that patient because you're finding the root cause of the problem. And that's where Ananda is such a wonderful company. And I got to tell you that when I started doing CBD, I didn't even know what it was. I had patients coming to me. We have a fairly significant pain management addiction practice at our pharmacy, and I work with a number of pain clinics and ex-doctors, methadone clinics, to help their patients get better outcomes. And the first person we put on this, the results were pretty much unbelievable, and that's how we got started. And so it's turned out to be an opportunity of a lifetime for my pharmacy because I get healthier patients and healthier profits. And what's the key to that is that if you're providing services for your patients and you're getting just these unbelievable outcomes, and that's profitable for your store, that means that it's a difference. I had one pharmacist tell me recently that he got up to about $10,000 a month in sales in CBD oil, and that changed his future because he might not have been able to make it without that. So it is life-changing, and we'll see in a minute how much I sell. So if this is a way for you to fill the gap that's rightfully yours, you have a patient comes in and they say they have arthritis. Well, what that really means is that they have an autoimmune disease and a lot of inflammation. So you know these things, you should take advantage of it. They're using a number of drugs that's causing drug depletions. They're taking these proton pump inhibitors, and now they're B12 and magnesium deficient. They're bringing in prescriptions to resolve those things that Nexium has caused. And so once you realize you have these opportunities and you have the patient base already in your store to take advantage of this, every patient that comes in is a possibility. And I can't tell you how much I tell my staff this. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And we've gone out and created it. We speak to anybody. If the Rotary Club needs a speaker, the Lions Club needs a speaker, the local hospital needs a speaker, a senior citizen group needs a speaker, we jump in there and provide a speaker for them. And most of them want to hear about CBD because it is the hottest topic out there. I mean, I was listening to Fox Business, and a number of different football players are on there promoting CBD companies. So it is everywhere. And I can't stress enough that if you work at it, you can create a huge business in this. And the two things you can do is we've got some tools we're going to show you to use that separate you from everybody else. And at the same time, the outcomes for your patients by using those tools will be enhanced.
And TW, I've heard you speak about this before, and one of the things I remember you talking about is not just going around and educating the community on CBD, but it's also educating your staff how important that is so that they can help the people when they come in as well.
Wow, you were listening.
I did listen, yes.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
I thought that was very important. I mean, it was something I hadn't thought of, but I thought that was a really good point. You don't want your staff out talking about something that they don't truly completely understand either.
Oh, I can't stress that enough. And Ananda is huge in that. They have the Ananda University, so now they can teach your staff. And the way that happened for me was by accident. Dr. Capano came and gave us a talk for us, and my whole staff was there. My whole staff got trained. I think we were her first talk. And I didn't realize at the time, but now they just jumped out and started selling it. And as soon as patients came back and were in tears, the results they got, they were excited about selling more. And it has been a huge difference. And from that, at Ananda University, all your staff can be well trained. And I can't stress that enough because the pharmacist, therefore, does not need to be involved in every sale. They only need to be involved at the end. As a matter of fact, we have a system in place that we track all the CBD patients so we can keep up with them, overcome objections, and keep them, getting success and increase our sales rate. And it's been significant. And then this brings us to the pharmacist. The pharmacist knows drug interaction, side effects, and dosing. We should own this market. I cannot imagine you going to your physician and the physician saying to you, I think you should stop by the local vape shop and get yourself some CBD. Or, I heard the hair salon down there had some good stuff. I mean, that just isn't going to happen. So they're going to send them to you. You should be in the office showing them what you can do for their patients. And the tools that we're going to show you in a little bit is just so powerful that it truly separates yourself. And when you're talking about powerful, in January of 2018, we sold about $3,000 of CBD. In April of 2019, we sold $80,000 of CBD. Now, you got to remember, that's a 50% margin product. Now, when I say life-changing, I do mean life-changing. And I'm talking about a town of 15,000 people. So I can tell you what, it's dramatic. Not only is it dramatic, but I've been to pharmacies that say, my staff, my constituents are 90% Medicaid, they won't do it. It is not your job to figure out what your patients can or cannot afford. You offer it to them. If you don't offer them CBD and they have fibromyalgia, nerve pain, they're on opiates, that's malpractice. You should at least offer them this opportunity. So my goal this year in 2019 was to get $1 million in sales in CBD at 50% product. If I came to your pharmacy today and I said, I can get you $1 million worth of sales and prescriptions next year, or $1 million worth of sales in CBD, what would you rather have? I mean, here you have no audits, no DRI fees. It's all cash, and it's a 50% profit. That's not happening in the prescription department these days.
It sure is not.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about more of the clinical side now. Whenever you grow a plant in the field, it soaks up everything. So you have to have a high quality farmer that knows what to do to grow it, because it will soak up what is over in the field. So if they've used a lot of pesticides or herbicides in the past, it's going to soak it up out of the soil. If there's metals in the soil, it'll soak it up. If it's not processed properly and has any solvents left in it, it will have that in the product that you have. I've seen studies where as much as 91%, FDA did one a couple of years ago, that 91% was adulterated. As you increase the THC in the plant, it decreases the CBD levels. So the ratio gets further apart. That's not what you want. So when you grow the plant, it's extremely important to have a person that knows what they're doing in a process. So it has to be kept with very low humidity or to grow mold. So when you have a product, you want to make sure you have a professional product. And that's why I use only Ananda, because they're the best. They only sell through independents. If you sell some of the other brands, that person can buy from you online or down the street. And so we want to stick up for us independents with a brand that supports us, and we get the downstream from Ananda. They have Ananda University. They have all kinds of resources for you to learn, and they actually are paying for basic research and some double-blind studies, which I'm involved with one at Eastern Virginia Medical School that they're sponsoring. So hemp, or what we say is CBD oil, is non-psychoactive. It has a micro dose of THC. And next one there. So these are some of the CBDs or the cannabinoids that's in the plant. There's about 113 of them, we think. These are some of the major ones. CBD-N, for instance, is very relaxing. It's a good one. So when you have a full spectrum product, you want to have all the cannabinoids in it, the original flavonoids and terpenes. Terpenes give it its taste and smell, and the micro dose of THC. When you have that, you have what's called a full spectrum product, and it gives you the entourage effect, which means all of this together works much better than any of it separately. And so you'll see people selling isolates. Well, they'll sell isolates because that's one of the cannabinoids, because it's easier and cheaper to make, but it is nowhere near as effective as the full spectrum product. So you always want to use full spectrum. There's sometimes there's a place and time for broad spectrum, which is the same thing as you see here without the THC. There are some places for that, but generally I always recommend full spectrum, even to children. And I have a child that's 3 years old on the full spectrum product at 30 milligrams a day with autism that's performed unbelievably.
Wow.
And see, and TW, while you're taking your breath here just a minute, just to remind anybody on the call that if you want to put in a question, don't hesitate to throw in the question in the question box, and we'll attempt to answer those as we come along here on the process.
This is whenever you have a patient in front of you, the two things that patient needs to have as low as possible in their body is histamine and inflammation. Inflammation is going to make every disease state worse. There's not one disease state that's not made worse by inflammation. So when that patient is standing in front of you and they have arthritis, you know they need a systemic product. And in our case, we pull out a dermatome chart and sell them a roll-on to go with it, so they can also use it topically in the areas that's bothering them, and on the dermatome that feeds that area from their back. When you do that, you're stopping the pain gateway 2 ways, and that's super important. So you're decreasing histamine release, and you're decreasing inflammation. Oh, this is cool. This is so much fun when you learn this. For instance, you have patients coming in and they can't sleep. So what does the doctor do? He gives them Ambien, and you don't have any Ambien receptor sites. But you do have endocannabinoid receptor sites, and they are all over your body. They're in every organ. They're in your skin, all your organs, your intestines, your brain. There's one place they're not, which is the medulla that controls autonomic function. So therefore, you can give CBD to all your patients. When you have that patient coming on the Trinity where they're on opiates and high doses and they're on muscle relaxants and the bars, the Xanax 2s, they're really at a high risk for overdose. You can give them tons of endocannabinoids through CBD oil, and it will not affect respiratory depression, heart rate, or constipation. So it actually will help them with constipation. So it's a win-win-win. Because you have those systems everywhere, it helps with anxiety and depression, autism, mood, sleep, pain. You got to remember you have 3 kinds of pain in your body. CBD is the only thing I know that works on all 3. It's impressive.
TW, we're getting a few questions here. And again, just to give you a moment to stop and get your breath, Sheila wants to know, what is your advice for pregnant patients?
Talk to their GYN patient and use a broad spectrum product. That's what I would suggest, a broad spectrum product, but make sure they got the okay for the GYN. You want them to be the final decision maker. But you got to remember how this works. So if a patient comes into you and says, how does this stuff really work? All it does is upregulates the natural endocannabinoid system you have in your body already. That's all it does. Since it's natural, I would say it's safe to use, and I would use a broad spectrum to be as safe as I could, and make sure you always get the okay from the GYN.
Yeah, and I can just add there. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Samantha.
I'm just pulling up from our Ananda Mind knowledge base, and it's something that Dr. Capano wrote in there, is that there are no human trials on CBD, safety in pregnancy and breastfeeding for obvious reasons. It's just not quite feasible to test it out on humans yet, but there is animal data possible. And so that's our next best option. And so in animals, CBD was associated with negative maternal fetal outcomes in pregnancy or lactation at very high doses. So for example, a woman weighing about 150 pounds would have to consume about 8,500 milligrams of CBD to reach the lowest threshold of negative effects. So TW is spot on by recommending the broad spectrum, and then of course is working with the physician, but it would have to take a very high dose is what they found in the animals.
Yeah, I've heard 250 times a normal dose.
Yeah.
And our good friend Maria from California wants to know, is the sale of CBD legal by federal law in California since it contains traces of THC?
Samantha? Oh, you want me to get it?
You can go if you'd like, sure.
All right. Yeah, CBD was passed, the 2018 Farm Bill included the 2018 Hemp Act. And when President Trump signed it into law, it took hemp, industrial hemp, which contains 0.3% of THC or less, away from the DEA. And so it is no longer a scheduled product. It's a crop like any other crop. So as long as it's grown under a section called 7606, it is completely legal in all 50 states federally. So it is federally legal. Now, there are some states and localities that's kind of making it challenging, but it is federally legal.
Okay. That's all the questions we have at this moment.
Cool. All the pharmacists need to know that this is a great alternative for pain. You can use it for migraines, for sleep. You got to remember, probably 40% of your patients are having some kind of sleep issues, whether it's getting to sleep, staying asleep, or waking up too early. And at our pharmacy, we do a lot of testing. So we would do some testing to find out the root cause of that, as opposed just to giving them some drug. Matter of fact, we just had a physician come in and we did a intracellular micronutrient test where we look inside the cell to find out what they're deficient in. And this particular physician she works out really hard. She was deficient in vitamin B5, and that's in the pathway to make melatonin. So therefore, she's having trouble to sleep because she was B5 deficient. I can tell you CBD works really well for sleep. And I'd like for them to work with me on a new product that we could increase CBD in to get a little bit better sleep product. CBD, this is really fascinating. The World Health Organization put out a statement that said it is safe and well tolerated. It is not associated with negative public health effects. It has no abuse potential. And the FDA has put out a similar statement. So it is really good to use. This is a great slide if you need some slides to take to physicians. Ananda has a great physicians packet that you can get from them and take out to your physicians and train them. I can't tell you how important that is, because even today, only about 13% of medical schools teach that you have an endocannabinoid system. So they just never were taught, and they don't know about it.
And to add what TW is saying, I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but TW, if you want to talk a little bit about the opioid study that we launched yesterday, or if there's a better part in your presentation, I can share some of that data and also include the link to the study that was published as open access, hot off the presses yesterday.
Would you cover that? I got to get plugged in here. My battery's running down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so yesterday we had...
Live with T.W. Taylor.
Yeah. In addition to being a very successful business owner, or pharmacy owner, he's also been a NASCAR driver. So, you know, he's used to multiple things happening.
Yeah, I like to drive 200 miles an hour and fly upside down. So.
There you go.
Exactly. In business and in a car, it's all good. But what the study published, and I'll include the link in the chat here in a moment, is that it was a clinical study with a local pain clinic in Kentucky-Indiana border. And in the clinical study, patients added Ananda full spectrum extract soft gels. So we offer tinctures and soft gels to their opioid treatment to manage chronic pain. And in just 8 weeks, 53% reduced their use of opioids. And in addition, 94% reported improvements in quality of life, such as sleep, pain, and/or mood. And that's a very exciting piece of information to get, because what we know is a lot of the studies haven't been used specifically for CBD or hemp-based products, nor in humans of this large of a study, so about 97 patients or participants. And so it can be linked back to full spectrum hemp extract, it's linked back to Ananda, but most importantly, it's helping patients reduce their opioids that TW is talking about that they need to get off of, especially when it comes to polypharmacy. So we're seeing an increase in quality of life and a decrease in those opioid usages.
So this ties into a question that Maria has: can CBD be used when patients are already on opioids?
Absolutely. It has no effect on respiratory depression, so there's no possibility of overdose, and what it really does is it reduces cravings. So when you have a patient, let's say they're a long-time opiate user, they don't take it to get high anymore. Those days are gone. They're taking it to keep from becoming dope sick. They're so scared of withdrawal, they'll do anything to keep from going through withdrawal. So they don't miss any doses because they go through withdrawal. When they take CBD, it changes that. So the cravings are less and the withdrawal symptoms are less. I've got patients that just start missing doses. Like I had one patient that went back after a month of taking CBD oil, her pill count, she had 4 days left. That never happened because if she missed a pill, she was already starting to get sick and was trying to find them. So it's really impressive how it changes that. But it changes the decision making that you have, because it helps with tobacco use, alcohol use, because it decreases your cravings. And it's not helping me with sugar too much, but it's helping with just about everything else.
It can't do everything, TW. But in the study, we actually didn't make any recommendations that they stopped their opioid use. But what they did was what TW mentioned, they kind of forgot to take it. So at the end of the day or the end of the month, they noticed that they had additional medication still left in the bottle, but their willingness was definitely measured, in addition to a few other very standard measurements for sleep and pain.
I want to emphasize something that Samantha said about quality of life. So the patient I just mentioned, her husband left me a note. He was so impressed. Now, she had 4 days left. That was impressive. But the biggest thing he was impressed with is he felt like he was starting to get his wife back. Her clearness of thought was better. Her participation with the family was better. She was doing more things with them, including just cooking and cleaning and participating. So it was dramatic for that family to get the opiate dose down. I was walking by a register about 2 months ago, and this lady asked me for a bottle of Ananda 600. So I grabbed it and was selling it to her. And I said, well, what are you taking it for? And she says, well, I used to be a pain management patient. Well, that got my attention. So naturally, I said, well, what do you mean you used to be a pain management patient? She said, I started taking CBD. I was on a 25 microgram fentanyl patch and 5 milligrams oxycodone 4 times a day. Now, granted, that's not big doses, but she said in 2 weeks she was off of all of it. I mean, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
No question.
And I'd like to suggest to you that it's really malpractice. If your doctor or attorney knew things that was helpful for you and decided not to tell you because they didn't think you could afford it, that would be malpractice. It's the same thing here. You should make sure that you let your patients know. Personally, I would be embarrassed if one of my patients asked me, why didn't you tell me about this? My friend's been taking it for 3 months and you didn't tell me. There's 3 kinds of pain: nerve pain, bone pain, and soft tissue pain. And you see the different things that we use for it. Primarily, if you showed up at the hospital and you had, a broken back or whatever, and the doctor turned to you, the pharmacist said, what are you going to give them? Well, you really have opiates and NSAIDs. I mean, you don't have many choices. And so CBD is a great choice for this. And I got to tell you, for nerve pain, it is the most successful thing you can use in your practice. I had a gentleman at one of my talks. He was in his 70s, and his nerve pain was so bad that he was going to have to stop delivering for the pharmacy because he couldn't get in and out of the car. And he loved his job because he got to see people and meet people, got him out of the house. And he took CBD, and he said in 3 days his nerve pain was gone. Not an 8 to a 6, it was gone. And so that's kind of the impressive stories that we hear. Oh, the meat and potatoes here. So over time, I've worked with some of my colleagues, and we've developed this dosing chart. So when I have a patient come in, we give them this dosing chart, and they're able to read about Ananda, what it is, why we sell it, and it gives them a way to take it. So we give them their instructions and a picture of the actual dropper that's in the Ananda bottle. And then we tell them how to start and how to take it. And you have all right, let's go through that. So when the patient comes in,
And
you put the
TW,
red.
before you hop in, I want to talk about the importance of this because
Please.
TW and his team are so well trained in being able to do this, and any pharmacy can follow this pattern. But this is what's going to help elevate that CBD buying experience from a pharmacy to a CBD shop or a beautician. They're not going to be able to help talk about how to appropriately find the actual dosage that's meant for what you need to take it for. So I think this really helps the pharmacist and the tech team step into their roles as clinicians as compared to someone else who just knows a little bit about the product and the different brands they're carrying.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. You are the professional. You should own this market. You should not allow your physician to send them anywhere but you, because you know this stuff. And the patient, they're going to trust you for having a quality product. They're going to trust you for dosing interactions and side effects. And the doctor is going to trust sending them to you because you know that. And the patients that are serious aren't going to stop by the beauty shop to get it. They're going to come get it from you because they want to know that information and the safety involved in it. So when a patient comes in, but here's another really key point you have to know. Pharmacists, we know that a milligram is a milligram. Well, that's true in the pharmacy world, but that's not true in the CBD world. CBD companies calculate the milligrams different ways. So for instance, if you were selling, let's say, Charlotte's Web, you have to take 50 to 70% more milligrams of Charlotte's Web to get the same dose of Ananda because of the way they calculate it. And so when I get patients coming in and they've been on some other product, I just start over because it's hard to know where they were. And so that's how we do it. So when they come in, the first thing I do is that we want to start them with the 600, and we want to start at 10 milligrams. And I actually draw the bell curve on here to kind of show why we do that. Can we do that, Sam? No. So we'll follow the directions. I'll draw the bell curve, and most of my patients are between 10 and 40, maybe 10 and 60 milligrams once or twice a day. Now, since the half-life is so long, most people can take it once a day, some people maybe twice a day. It doesn't matter really whether they want to start at night or in the mornings. I generally like nights just because it's a good way to do it. But I got some patients that prefer the mornings, and I've got some that need split dosing because they process faster. The half-life is 9 to 72 hours. So the next thing that I would find is that they would try to dose up too fast, and they would end up at a dose higher than they really needed. And since you don't have a ceiling dose, I do have patients that are anywhere from about 2.5 milligrams or maybe even a little less up to about, I've had one patient at 300 for seizures, but most of them are 10 to 60, and once in a while you get up to maybe 100 for some outliers. Once we get our patients to dose up and find their dose, and you do it slowly over, like dose up about every 3 or 4 days, and they'll leave with this in their hand so they have a plan when they leave your store. They're not just told something and have to try to remember it later. And then we have a way to monitor it. So we put on the back of this sheet a journal for them to keep, and it gives them scales of, they can write down their symptom, my nerve pain, my anxiety level. They can rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 and keep this journal. That helps them not only find their sweet spot, but it tells them if it's working or not. I cannot tell you how many times that, like, let's say I sell 1,000 bottles a month, which I actually probably sell more than that. It's not a bad thing. And so we sell a bottle, and I always tell them that if you follow our directions and you don't get any results, you just bring it back, I'll give you your money back. Because I'm trying to sell them outcomes, not what they perceive as snake oil. And so if they come back and they're not getting results, then they're that 1 out of 10 that doesn't get results, or 1 out of 100. What I found before I started this journal was I had people come back to me, I'd give them the money back, and a week later they would come back and rebuy it because they were getting results, but they didn't realize it. So once we started the journal, we stopped a lot of that. So if I sell over 1,000 bottles a month, I may get 5 returns. For instance, I had somebody bring back one yesterday. They did everything I said. They didn't get any results. I gave them the money back, and they bought a roll-on because they wanted to try that. So you can turn this into, and let me back up. What is the most important thing for your customer? It's not your customer service. It's the customer experience that you give that person. When they walk out of the door, they're not going to write the Google review on what you did or what you said. They're going to write it on how you made them feel. So that's the reason I went through that scenario. We had a patient come in yesterday, and we gave her money back. I want her to leave with the best possible emotional feeling she can and the best possible results for her. And that's why we developed this journal, and this worked really well. In addition to that, speaking of the roll-on, do we have the dermatome chart? Oh, yeah. So I'm a compounding pharmacist as well. And so we use dermatome charts to help with pain management patients, and we make up pain creams. And so we transferred that same information over to a dermatome chart. So we developed this one that tells the patient what they are and how to use it. In this particular example, we had a patient come in and they had nerve pain in their feet. So obviously you want to use the roll-on and rub it on their feet. And I got to tell you, the roll-on is terrific. So you roll it on your feet, and then they helps the pain locally. But if you want to get creative, you want them to also rub it on the dermatome that feeds that area. And in this case, or the nerve ganglia, in this case, L4 and 5. So you rub it up and down the sides of the backbone, not in the middle where the bone and the disc are, but on the sides where the nerve is that feed that side or both sides. And you do this roll-ons at least twice a day. Some people do it 3 times, but usually twice is enough, morning and night. And you're stopping the pain gateway 2 ways. Your patients will get a much better result when they do that. And so when my patients leave from my pharmacy, whether my clerk did this exercise or the technician or the pharmacist did it, when they leave with a plan that's personalized to them, that's been circled and written on and explained to. And then we actually get their name, email, and cell number, and we follow up with them in 3 to 5 days to see how they're doing. And we try to get them on an auto refill or a sync program so we can keep them in line, making sure they're getting results.
TW, did we lose him?
We may have, but I can hop in real fast. So there's over 1,700 different CBD products or brands in the industry right now, and that's a very hard place for a consumer to make sure that they're finding the right information. So one of the tools we want to make sure that regardless of which brand you carry, of course, we want you to consider Ananda Professional, but the things to know is that the FDA, as TW mentioned, is that they found in 2016 that 91% of products do not match their packaging, meaning that the product that's in the bottle, it may say that there's 1,000 milligrams of CBD in it. When you actually go to look at the certificate of analysis, which should be done by a third-party FDA-approved lab, they actually found that it might only have 500 milligrams, or some products might only have 20 milligrams. It's very important to make sure that what's on the label matches in the actual product. So I think the next slide might show a little bit about what that looks like, but the things to really consider to make sure that you, the pharmacies, are aware of the products you're buying in the name of safety for your patients as well, is that the product should be full spectrum, not isolate CBD, as TW mentioned earlier. That's going to help them save money, but also see better results. And that the label measures active cannabinoids, not oil content. So when they say 600 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams, that they mean not the amount of liquid, but the actual amount of cannabinoids the patient's going to receive in their dose. And then that the company can provide lot-specific third-party certificate of analyses. And on all Ananda products, for example, we have a QR code that can be scanned, the lot number can be put in, and you'll see it batch specific. All too often, companies are using their own testing labs, they're using really old, like their original batch numbers, and not updating it with every single item that they're producing. So TW, it looks like you're back now. If you want to talk a little bit about why it's important for the pharmacies to really do that due diligence.
Yeah, it's kind of neat when somebody comes in, especially, people get information from everywhere, and some of it's good, some of it's bad. So when they come into my pharmacy and we point at the QR code, we'll even help them pull it up on their phone right there. That's impressive. And so it's another way that you can, show the difference. And I've had a number of patients that were on other products, which are good products, switch to Ananda, and they have gotten better results. And so that's been kind of fun to see that happen. I had a group of 3 or 4 retired pharmacists that actually tried several brands. They were using mine, switched to different brands just to see what the difference was, and they always came back to Ananda as they were kind of testing it.
You'll see a lot of patients come in and say, oh, I need to take a dose that's 1,000 milligrams because that's what I took with this other brand. And as TW mentioned earlier, always start the patient back at 0 and going through the dosing process, because they're most likely taking an isolate or a product that wasn't quite matched up on the label. And then usually they can take a lower dose, which is just makes the product last longer, saves them a bit of money, and they'll see results that actually can help them.
Yeah, speaking of that, the way I do it is that if y'all are familiar with the Ananda line, they have a 300, 600, 1,000, and 2,000 tincture. The reason that you want to use a tincture, by the way, is that you can finely adjust the dose, and whatever you get absorbed in the capillary bed doesn't go through first pass effect. And first pass with CBD is about 30% loss, where if you take like 1,000 milligrams of metformin, that's a 90% loss through first pass. So you lose some, but the more you get absorbed under the capillary bed, under the tongue, is going to be better for them, and you can adjust the dose finely. So that's one of the reasons I like the sublinguals as opposed to soft gels, which is nothing wrong with the soft gels. It's just that you have a 15, 30, 45, or 60 milligram dose, where here you can adjust it finely.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
with that being said, the 300 is a good place to start. I mean, the 600 is the best place to start. If the person doesn't want to spend $90, downsell to the 300. Once you find the person's sweet spot, and let's say it's 30 milligrams, they can buy the 1,000 milligram bottle, and that'll last them 33 days. If they're on a high dose or just want to have the lowest cost per dose, go to the 2,000. That's like buying three 600s and getting one free. So it does save them a significant amount of money. The roll-on that you see there is absolutely terrific. The salve works well, but my patients are mostly switching to roll-on because it has 3 times more CBD in it, and they like the ease of use. Now, if I have a patient that has some skin irritation, eczema or something, I recommend the lotion. That works really well. It doesn't have any menthol in it like the roll-on does, and it works really well, especially if the person has shingles. That lotion would be really good for that. Bliss, by the way, we didn't talk about that. Women have a lot of receptor sites in the labia, and that's a good thing to rub on. I have not met a group. I usually ask the groups I speak to if they're against better orgasms, and I've never had anybody say yes yet. So it's a good way to increase the intensity, and it's a big part of life, and so we want you to have big success with it.
We've got a number of questions here that have come through. Let me give you another break. We're going to stop here before 2 o'clock Eastern. Louisiana has product and label requirements from Mr. Peter, he says. Is an Ananda registered with Louisiana and these requirements?
The answer is that we are working with all of the states that have special requirements. I'm not exactly sure of the complete status of it, but I know Kaylee and our team is working with Louisiana to make sure all of our labels are up to date and all the paperwork is submitted. So I can follow up if you want to share their contact. I'm happy to have someone reach out.
I will. He's a client of ours. I'll share that information with you. Also from Maria, she wants to know if CBD is interacting with, she says she knows it interacts with Coumadin, but what about Xarelto and Eliquis?
Yeah, that's a good question. And here's the way I do it personally, and it depends on how conservative you want to be. So anything that goes through CYP 450, you can kind of think about the grapefruit type drugs. So it could affect things like statins, SSRIs. I don't really worry about any of those. You have to get doses of about 50 or 60 milligrams before you even get to an interaction. So what I really worry about is, by the way, on Xarelto, Eliquis, if you're really concerned, you can separate it by a couple hours, but it's probably not even necessary. Coumadin is always a wild card. And I can give CBD to 3 different patients and I'll get 3 different results. One will increase, one will stay normal, and one will decrease. So always make sure that your Coumadin patients or warfarin patients are getting INRs. You want to keep an INR of around 2.5 or 3. So they need to get that within a few days of starting this and monitor it while they're getting stabilized on CBD. The other area I worry about is anti-epileptics, because when normally, not with everything, but normally you get an increase in the peak and a decrease in the length of action. So the way I look at it is, if the patient is fine on their anti-seizure medicine, then don't worry about it. If they're starting to get additional side effects because of the CBD, then get with their doc to decrease the dose of the anti-epileptic, because CBD increases the threshold for seizures, so it's a win-win. And so that's how I approach the interaction side of it.
Yeah. Another question is, does the chart or charts that you refer to come in the Ananda box with the orders? Or maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. So when you work with Ananda, it's, of course, you're getting high quality products, but you're also getting access to our platform of CBD coaches or account executives who their goal is to help provide clinical and marketing support to help you uncover that $10,000 to $60,000 in additional profit per year. Our goal is to get everyone selling about $10,000 of product a month. And the tools that they're going to leverage for that, to answer the question, is the access to the anandamide knowledge base. And that's where you will receive a lot of the training aspects of it, the answers to the clinical FAQs, access to marketing tools. You will receive some in the box. There's little dosing cards that are about a postcard size, but if you want the fuller expanded versions that like TW showed you, that's made more digital, that you can customize with your logos and then print out as many as you need. But you'll also get access to Ananda University, which is our certification program, as well as what we call the 7 pillars of high performing pharmacy. So we've examined what TW does as well as other high performers and made it into steps 1 through 7 as part of your onboarding strategy with us.
And I think you've touched on this indirectly, if not directly, but is someone from Kentucky saying, this is Matthew from Kentucky, says, is it possible if I'm in Kentucky, can I make an appointment to get some training? And I think you were just talking about this on the coaching aspect. Were you not, Samantha?
Yeah, we are based in Kentucky, so if you're close to us, we're always happy to schedule something a little more intimate with you and your team if you would like. But to get out to the masses and to make sure to go through our certification program, we do have the Ananda University e-learning platform where you can get everyone on your team, from your delivery driver to your pharmacist in charge, up to date, because we want you to create that army of CBD champions, as TW started out his presentation with. The more people on your team who are engaged with this, the more they're feeling good about making these recommendations to their team, or excuse me, to their patients, and they're walking billboards for you. And if they don't have problems with sleep, pain, or mood, they know someone who does. Who does. So we recommend always giving everyone on your team a bottle of at least 300 or 30 count soft gels to test out themselves, to get them to see those experiences. They can give them to someone else if they want, but we really want to create that army of CBD champions, speaking the truth, I was going to say, or just like the actual factual clinical knowledge of CBD in the community versus some of these more hyperbolesque retailers.
And here's a great question from Orlando. Orlando says, how do you combat pushback from pain management clinics that ultimately want their patients to continue to visit the clinics for revenue?
Mm-hmm. TW, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, that's a little odd one there. I don't know of a clinic that wouldn't like to have their patients decrease opiate use. For them not to want to have the patients decrease, most of them are not going to get 100% off, but this is synergistic, so you can actually decrease it. I'm more run into the situation where they're still testing and they're worried about being positive for THC and therefore get thrown out of their pain management contract. So in that case, in either case, I would get into the pain clinic and do lunch and learns and that kind of stuff with them. Yeah. And that way you can get them up to speed and educated.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I had to do a TW plug-in moment, my NASCAR driving. There are tools available, like the physician folder that TW mentioned. We will be updating it to include the opioid reduction information, which we did partner with a pain clinic. And there's also drug testing letters from our chief science officer to help the patient discuss it with their pain clinic or employer, to say, hey, I'm taking this as an alternative because I want to live a healthier, higher quality of life versus taking something that might kind of put me a little bit under, and there is a chance that it could show up on a drug test. Would you be willing to do a confirmation test if that happens?
Yeah, I want to tell y'all an interesting story. I had a attorney approach me, and she is an HR attorney for a large trucking firm, and they wanted to keep their truckers. And they wanted, as they got older, it was harder to get in and out of the cabs, and they were finding that CBD was very successful. So they wanted to pay the drivers to take CBD, but they didn't want them to lose the CDL license. So they worked away with the company to do, if anybody tested positive, they would do blood sampling to show that they had non-intoxicating levels. And that worked well for that group. So if you have a patient you think is going to lose their job over testing positive, make sure you either give them some THC tests to test themselves, or they actually go to the HR department first before they take it so they don't lose their job.
Another question from Tom here says, is the webinar available to show your employees? And Tom, yes, if you registered for this webinar will be pushed out to you post the completion here today. And I'm just trying to check through here as we kind of begin to wrap up here how many questions we have that haven't been answered. Here's one: does TW sell any other brands or only Ananda products?
Only Ananda.
Okay.
It only makes sense to sell. That's a great question. I'm glad they asked, because I only sell Ananda because if I have another brand, what's the first thing that the patient's going to ask you? Why?
Which one's better?
Which one? Yeah. Which one's cheaper? Which one's better? So I don't have to answer that question. And then if I had another brand, I'd have to explain the difference in what the dosing is, because you'd have to dose them both differently. And then there's very few other brands that sell exclusively to independents. Now I have one product to offer, one product to train on. It's a win-win-win. And I got to tell you, the depth that Ananda has. I mean, you got to remember they've got the Lambert Center. I mean, Mr. Lambert put millions of dollars to study this, and we are getting the benefit from it. So I'm gonna make sure I support the people that support me. I get people in all the time. You know, two women that have a friend that's a farmer, and now they're gonna do a pyramid scheme and make $1 million. And or I had a farmer the other day come in, and he says, "Man, I grew all this stuff and I have all this product, but I can't sell it. I got all this biomass I can't sell because everybody's growing it." And so those are the kind of obstacles that are things that's going on right there, and they'll do anything, and they're clever. Like Samantha was saying earlier, these people can go online and they can copy anybody else's stuff, and they sound like they know what they're doing when they really don't.
We've got a little bit less than 5 minutes here, guys. So any kind of wrap-up comments you want to make, please feel free to do so.
I got one thing I like to tell everybody. At our pharmacy, we focus on a bunch of stuff that is not prescription related. I can't tell the PMMs what to pay me, so we focus on a lot of nutraceuticals and testing and stuff. I have us down to about 60% prescription and 40% nutraceutical CBD and stuff. It's life-changing for your pharmacy. You get to practice real pharmacy, help your patients without having to be on the phone with the PBMs all the time. And so our pharmacy is much happier, I can tell you.
Samantha, any closing comments from you?
Absolutely. So we are super excited to work with over about 4,000 independent pharmacies all across the U.S. And we would love to welcome you into the family of working with us. We're a professional brand. We try to offer as many varieties of products that will elevate you as that professional in the space. We're one of the I think probably the only company, or at least one of the very few, that has a full-time medical director and chief science officer. So dedicated to actually figuring out how CBD works with the body, not just trying to jump on the bandwagon of selling a product, but giving you the data, just like the opioid study, or eventually having sleep, or how it works with dementia patients, so that we can have more factual-based evidence for CBD and positioning you as that go-to resource. So from clinical to marketing support, we want to make sure that you can focus on being that clinician and empower your team so that you can really reap those rewards of pharmacy ownership. So feel free to give me a call directly or look at our website for a little more information.
And you know, we here at the Slicing Company believe that, again, this opportunity available to independent retail pharmacies across the country is unique, in that you've got high margin, you've got cash, no DR fees, no PBMs to deal with. We think you got an opportunity here to really, as TW has already done in Williamsburg, take your pharmacy to a whole nother level, and intertwine that with both nutraceutical and other medicinal responses to the patient for patient positive outcomes. So I think if you don't take an advantage of this in the coming years, you're missing out on a tremendous opportunity to bring really solid dollars to the bottom line. And we would just also like to mention that on our website, we literally have hundreds of videos available specifically for pharmacists and pharmacies on industry specific topics. We update those about every 10 days. We invite you to check our website out at sykes-cpa.com or subscribe to our YouTube channel so that information is pushed out to you automatically. Also, Bonnie and I will be more than happy to answer any direct questions you've got about either financial issues or tax issues or how we're seeing this in the industry. You've got our contact information here. And Bonnie, you want to add anything to that?
I just want to say I've been working with TW for a couple of years, and he's not exaggerating when he says that this has made a tremendous positive change in his pharmacy. So I've seen that firsthand working with the accounting side. So it obviously can be done. I think it's super important, like he mentions. I mean, I think it's a great product, but it's also important, like you mentioned, to really get out there to do these seminars to educate. It is a huge thing. You can't just put it on the shelf. You've got to take the time to work with and educate the public on, because there's definitely a stereotype out there of, a lot of people just don't understand fully. So I think that's a super important thing.
Well, again, it's our
TW's a
pleasure.
rock star.
No question about that. And he looks forward every month to seeing his numbers because it's making a difference in your life, is it not, TW?
Yeah, I like to say I'm really grateful to have Bonnie and Alan as my CPA, but really Alan's my CFO. And I couldn't have done this stuff without Alan, and I just am so appreciative. And Ananda, I can't tell you how quality their organization is from top to bottom. And it's just a pleasure to be working with you guys. And the success ain't bad either.
Thanks, TW. And as someone who's worked in this space of pharmacy consulting for independents for 10 plus years now, I can say I think there's a lot of value in working with companies that specialize in independent pharmacy. And that's from tax to financial planning to CBD companies, because what they're doing is cultivating the knowledge from owners just like you from all around the country. So, for example, what's working for TW in Virginia, from his CFO to his CBD company, we both can now take that information and make it available to other pharmacies in Florida, California, Washington. And the more we all become stronger, the better the industry is going to be, and the opportunity that is for you in your store, as well as us united as independent pharmacy industry. So kudos to everyone for showing up for that.
Absolutely. We appreciate everybody joining us today. And TW and Samantha, are glad you're with us, and look forward to having you guys perhaps on an additional call in the future.
Love it.
Super, guys.
All right. You have a great day. Take care.
Bye.